So today I have a question that's maybe a little bit sensitive. I'm not sure. Oh, no, not like that. Not that kind of sensitive.
Okay.
This might be a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know. But I've heard from many foreigners visiting or living in Prague that they have the impression that a lot of Czech people are not the friendliest. Right?
Yeah, I think it's true. Like comparing to other nationalities, there are some really nice.
So it's true.
And
Question over. Moving on. Thanks for watching.
but I have some more thoughts about it.
Okay, I hope
Let's
so.
go to.
So that's not your final thought on the issue.
No, it's not the final.
Okay, good.
But
Because I think that's a little bit
even as a
simplistic.
Czech, I would agree because I've seen some other countries, and the reason for that, it's really hard question. This is just really my opinion, and not all the Czechs might have the same one.
I think that's
I'm
always the case,
yeah,
right?
That's always the case. So I'm gonna go for it.
Right, go for it.
Well, it could be because we have a lower salary than some other countries around, and like for example Germany, when you have a lady at the cash desk in the supermarket, she would earn like 3 times less in Germany. And
3 times less than in
Than Germany?
In Germany, 3 times more.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, okay. And that means the mood of the person that earns less for the same job could be worse because of that.
Okay.
And these jobs are usually have too long hours and too little pay. So it's not for everybody, and it's like if you cannot find other jobs, you go just do this, or you go do it for a short period of time. I can see some really happy persons there working there on the beginning, but by the time it goes like this. And the reasons for that could be really many. It's not always about them. It's never only about the money.
No, because there are countries like mine,
Yeah.
for example, that has its own problems and issues when it comes to labor and people being their mentality. But like the person at the cash desk at a supermarket in the US is, yes, they're also working for minimum wage, working long hours, but
Yeah.
they often have a smile. They'll say hello. It's sometimes it's sincere.
Well, it's true.
It's-
If you compare the Czechs to Americans, it would be quite opposite, because the Americans would be like friendly on the outside,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit less friendly when you really meet them
Sure.
and know them.
Right.
And the Czechs would be really the opposite. That means they might not seem so friendly. Like, this is not in general, but some of them might seem like a little bit angry or not so friendly at the first sight. Well, when you actually meet them and you are getting friends with them, you could have a long-term friendship very easily. Yeah. So it really depends if you know the person or not.
Right. Most visitors or even foreigners living in Prague, they don't get so many chances to have close relationships with Czechs, unfortunately. Even people who live here for years often don't learn the language. They have their bubble of foreign friends. So I think the main way that they encounter Czechs, especially tourists, will be in supermarkets, in restaurants, where there is no sense of customer service or that the customer is always right. As an American, this was a huge shock for me first coming here, because the idea that the customer is always right, which is true in America, here it's laughable. The customer can go to hell. Like, they don't care. And
Well-
it's not personal.
Well,
but
we have the same motto, like the customer should be the first, but...
Do you say that? Is that said?
Yeah, I've heard
Really?
it many times, but it doesn't just work that
It just
way.
doesn't work. I'm surprised that
Like-
even that would be a phrase in Czech, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's true even for myself, even though I am Czech, it's same for me. I go to restaurant and it's like half to half. I have a 50% chance that they will be unfriendly.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a lot of strange because they get the tips at the end of the meal.
Yeah.
So it's really unlogic. Like you're gonna be unfriendly with the customer, so you get no tip.
Yeah.
And the tipping is not. You don't have to tip in Czech Republic. It's something the Czech restaurants would expect from the foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they really like got the Czech restaurants like categorizes people like Czech people and foreigners. So some restaurants like foreigners because they do a lot of tips. It doesn't mean they are kind to them. So
Right.
if the Czech person is not kind to you in the restaurant or in the supermarket, it doesn't mean it's because you're a foreigner.
No. It has that's
Yeah.
the thing. It has nothing to do with being a foreigner or a
Yeah.
Czech. The Czechs get it as much as foreigners do. Like,
Yeah.
it becomes more complicated for foreigners because of the language. So as soon as like
And it's a little bit more complicated, for example, with the Vietnamese people, because now they're living a lot of them here, and some people look at the Vietnamese like something a little bit lower to them, so they might speak lower to the
like,
Vietnamese
speak down to them.
than the other nationality.
Mm.
So it could be complicated in that.
Sure.
But I wish Czech people would be more friendly, like on the outside too, and it could be connected to the history, where we were like in the communism many years, and we were not allowed to do many things, and at that time there were a lot of people who would say bad things about other people, and they would
report
get
on them.
report on them. So it could be connected to that too, that we have our like small groups, and it's sometimes hard to get inside the group. But if you are inside, it's like a family.
Yeah, that's true also, is in my experience it's much more difficult to get to know Czechs and to have Czech friends than in America or in England or something.
But of course, like everywhere, it's changing with the new generation.
It is.
It's getting better and better.
Which supports your idea that it comes from history, because at that time you had to be really private. You didn't know who you could trust if you didn't know the person well. The working conditions and living conditions were not great, so there wasn't a lot to be optimistic about. But I've seen it changing just in the last 15 years.
It's changing a lot, and I don't think the Czechs appreciate it so much. I think they get it for granted, and they don't realize that compared to other states, we are doing actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Czechs likes to, it could be like a sport, they likes to complain about politics, about prices of the bread, about prices of the beer,
About working.
about
Yeah.
just about life. So
Yeah, it's true. Because this is something I was thinking about recently, is that, yeah, we could blame the history and the working conditions, but then you go to Croatia or Slovenia or some of these countries where they had a more difficult history, because not only after communism, like then there were wars there, but the people there are pretty warm. Like it's pretty easy to have a nice conversation with people. People seem sincerely happy to talk to you. And it's very different, even though it's a similarly difficult past. So there's something more to it. I'm not sure, but it's also not only the Czech Republic.
It's definitely more things.
Yeah,
It's very little about money. It could be more about history, and even more about the history, like of the nation, like through the time how it went.
To be fair, just a few days ago I was in Poland for the first time. I was wondering what to expect there about the mentality, because a lot of Polish people that I met here I found to be pretty warm and nice people. Being in Poland, I have to say, it was about people on average were about as cold or colder than in the Czech Republic, like in supermarkets or in
so it
at
was
a
similar.
hotel reception or something. There was no help or warmth at all. So it's not only the Czech Republic. There's something about the region.
So I think what you should take from this video is the fact that the unfriendliness you will most definitely encounter some here, but you should not get down because of that, because you should not take it personally. Just don't take it personally and you'll be fine. Just be aware of that. It's kind of normal. It's like what Czechs are. Some of them are really friendly and some of them are not.
There are
it's
some
like a 50-50.
really nice and warm Czechs who are very sweet. But there is that culture of, I think you were kind of suggesting it before, is that here it's not because they're angry at you, it's not because they're reacting to something specific, and it's not because they're having a bad day. This is just the way that they approach life. A certain type of person, they're pretty depressed about everything.
Yeah.
But I
there's
agree.
always things you can be depressed about, things you might not like, but
and the culture kind of allows it. Is like in this particular culture, you express what you feel. If you don't feel happy or nice, why would you make an effort to show this random customer that you're happy, even if you don't feel like it? Whereas in many cultures, there's some pressure to act happy even if you're not. So you're more free here. You behave how you feel.
Yeah, and I would give you advice if you are coming here for a longer time, not just 2 weeks like a tourist. Try to get friendly with the Czechs and you'll see that they will get more open and you might have a really good friend for a lifetime.
And even if you're just here for a couple of weeks and especially longer, like try to learn a few words of Czech. I'm not talking about becoming fluent, but it's amazing sometimes what a difference can make if you're able to say hello and thank you and goodbye in
that's
Czech.
always useful in every country. It will make the people more warm.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you will get a nice that you'll get a smile or a nice reaction, but you have a better chance rather than the foreigner who comes and immediately speaks English and asks them to speak a language that they don't know, and they can get annoyed by this. And that it's just not personal. It has nothing to do with you.
Don't take it personal.
We might do a video about American friendliness.
Tell
on
us
the other channel.
Tell us if you know another country that you think is even more unfriendly on the outside than the Czechs are.
That's an interesting
That will
question.
be interesting.
I like that, yeah. And thank you very much for the information, Miko.
Okay,
Liked your
you're
perspective.
welcome. And see you next live.
Next live? What? Next live?